Hello and welcome to day 4, episode 5, I think. So day 4 of the official lockdown. It's Thursday today in the UK. I apologise for not doing a video yesterday. I had to upgrade my computer and I had quite a lot of different things to look through. News was coming in thick and fast yesterday, and I was trying to make sense of numerous things, particularly of this antibody test, which we'll come to in a bit. So over the last couple of days, so Wednesday, Thursday, obviously news of growing numbers of deaths in Italy and Spain. They are so far presenting the highest number of deaths outside of, or sorry, in the world, in fact, not even outside of China, but in the world. But in my reading, I came across something that says that the rate of respiratory deaths standardly in Italy is something like 3 times higher than the rest of Europe, or most of the rest of Europe, because of various other factors, including a high amount of old age people, a high amount of people in densely populated areas. And various other things. I don't quite know all the reasons for it, I can't remember now. But statistically speaking, Italy always does have more deaths from respiratory illnesses than the rest of Europe. I can't comment on Spain, I haven't looked into that yet. So as of yesterday, in Italy, there have been 7,000 deaths, supposedly linked to coronavirus. Now, I've had other reports coming out now of Italy that 99% of those deaths are in people aged over 75, and that they had serious pre-existing conditions. Obviously, we've seen on the news multiple things of younger people having died or having experienced coronavirus. And there have been numerous stories of different things. However, statistically speaking, it's looking like something around 99% of all the deaths are in older people with severe pre-existing conditions. However, they are looking at clamping down seriously on people who are breaking their curfews. And so for anyone found outside the homes without a valid reason, anyone at all, is subject to fines of up to €3,000. So just think about that. You are found outside your home for any reason at all, other than permitted valid reasons, you can be fined €3,000. That's pretty draconian. Obviously, they're desperate to solve their problems with coronavirus. And there was talk of that plateauing yesterday, I believe. However, time will tell whether Italy's reached its peak or not. And furthermore, if people have been diagnosed with COVID-19, and they are found outside and not observing the curfew, they will be subject to up to 5 years imprisonment. Right, so let's just think about that. So you've been diagnosed with an illness. Now your illness is highly infectious, according to the official media. It's highly infectious, and you are put into a confined prison environment with other prisoners and inmates. Now, according to this morning's news, there have been at least 2 deaths in UK prisons so far from coronavirus. Now, prisons are the perfect breeding ground, and I really feel strongly that more needs to be done to protect prisoners. They don't deserve to die of a horrible disease because of because they've committed a crime, or whatever the crime is. We have to. They're in prison, so we look after them and keep them out of society. But we owe them a duty of care and protection to ensure their well-being. If we're taking away their liberties, often for very good reasons, we owe them a duty of care to at least be able to feed them, to be able to keep them safe from disease. So first of all, on this, going back to Italy, if someone with coronavirus is found outside and given 5 years imprisonment, they're going to be taking an infectious person potentially. And who's going to arrest them? The police, who are not wearing hazmat suits. Does that not risk offending the police? Are they going to be taken to a hospital until they recover? Maybe, if they do recover. Lots of questions there, but just look at this as an example of the direction of travel that we seem to be going on in Europe at the moment. That we are looking at imprisoning people who are breaking the curfew for leaving their homes. And that is severe in its extreme. We have to really think about what we're doing here, because we're setting a direction of travel that will set a new normal, and we may not recover from and go back to what we had before. I think there's a lot of concern at the moment that in the UK, and I haven't read it yet, but the new coronavirus bill, which has been passed unanimously through Parliament at the moment, and is waiting assent in the House of Lords today, I believe. It's gone through with no objections, with no proper debate. 319-page document has been passed in a day that brings in sweeping new reforms that last for 2 years. And that can be reviewed after 6 months, but after 6 months it needs to be a parliamentary majority to scrap the provisions in this law. So one of the provisions in these laws are that a person can be committed to a psychiatric unit under the Mental Health Act with just one clearly the lorries aren't, so I'm staying at home today. So you can be committed to the mental health unit under the Mental Health Act with just one doctor. Don't need 2 people, and also that it can be for an indeterminate amount of time, and the reasons do not need to be specified. It gives me a great cause for concern. I'm going to look into this more and probably report back more when I've read up about this one. Also sweeping new powers to come in to remove people from the street, to stop gathering, to potentially stop people going outside, and allowing the army to come onto the streets and police the population, amongst other things. However, we'll come back to that because I don't have enough details on that. Other news of yesterday: our darling Prince Charles has been tested positive for COVID, for coronavirus. Big news? No, who gives a shit? No, that's it's a footnote. He'll get the best care, he'll be looked after. And unfortunately, probably live to tell another day. Anyway, let's not go into that one. Okay, so obviously the biggest news of the day yesterday was this new coronavirus testing kit that will be available within days, they tell us. It's a 15-minute test, a bit like a pregnancy test. It has 3 lines on it. One is a control test, one is for antibody called IgG, and the other one for antibody called IgM. Now, this test has not been properly tested. It's going to be tested in Oxford today and tomorrow, I believe. So what it is, it's a finger prick test. You have to basically drop a bit of blood onto this thing. It'll test for antibodies in your blood to coronavirus or COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2, whichever way they want to call it. So anyway, it tests for antibodies to this thing. Now, this test has been ordered in its millions already, and is about to be rolled out across the country. It has the potential, so say the government, to revolutionise how we're managing this outbreak of coronavirus at the moment. And on the face of it, it does. If you've got a test coming out where you can get in 15 minutes, you can drop a bit of blood onto the stick and see whether you've got antibodies to coronavirus. And so just to have a look at this now, immunoglobulins are what we're talking about, and these are proteins in the blood. So the first one is one called IgG, immunoglobulin G, and they're testing for increased levels of IgG in the body's immune response. And immunoglobulin G is the most abundant antibody found in every single cell of the body. Are they just looking for increased antibody levels, or is this test, which I'll show you in a minute, as this test claims, specifically testing for the antibody found in coronavirus, the one of the little spiky bubble thing we've seen pictures of all over the news. And the other thing is immunoglobulin M, which is the body's first line of defence against new infection. If they are just testing for increased Ig levels, then any infection can show increased Ig levels of absolutely anything. Now we're being told that this new test, so the new test is apparently being made by a company called Alpha Biolabs. I've been reading through their documentation. So they said it's a rapid fingerprint testing kit for coronavirus. Identify COVID-19 before symptoms appear. Now that is key. So if you've got coronavirus but you're asymptomatic, you're not showing any symptoms, then you could be walking around potentially infecting hundreds of thousands of other people. If you're in a high profile position like a doctor or an A&E. So if you can identify that you have got elevated Ig levels or antibodies to coronavirus, then you can take yourself out of circulation, self-isolate for a while, come back into circulation once you've recovered from it. So it goes on to say that then it's screen the workforce and isolate carriers immediately. Now, what isn't clear from this is the level of antibodies that are required to be found, and whether we don't actually know whether exposure to COVID-19 confers immunity afterwards. It does with many other illnesses, but with common cold, with flus, and I understand with other coronaviruses, that exposure to it does not necessarily confer immunity. Now, I feel like we're being led a little bit of a line with this test. It's going to be the Almighty God and Saviour of the country. And I kind of urge us to exercise some caution. It's a new test. It's unproven at the moment. It's obviously very quickly going to be proven in one way or another. They're only testing it on population in Oxford today. And yet they've ordered millions of these things, and they've been whisked up very, very quickly out of thin air. Now, I understand that something similar existed in China already. I don't know, but this is supposedly brand new to the UK, due to be released to medics in the next few days or so. However, Now, in this documentation, it claims that it is 90. So actually, we can confirm the quality of the immunoassay screen is very high. The medical device contained within our kits has a EC declaration of conformity. Blah 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 blah. I don't know how they've got a declaration of conformity already when it's been so quickly produced and it's not been tested yet. But it goes on to say that the sensitivity of our immunoassay is 86.8% on IgM. That's immunoglobulin M. That's the antibody that your body produces to fight infection. That's the one that's is the first antibody made to new infection, as we talked about earlier. 86.8%, so that leaves 13.2% inaccuracy. And immunoglobulin G, 97.4% accuracy. With a specificity of 98.6% and 99.3% respectively. Now, I would severely question those figures. I'd massively question those figures. Just because there hasn't been enough time to actually properly test this in the open world. This is something that's been invented over the last week or two. We've heard Boris Johnson talking about this, and the Health Secretary talking about this potentially coming up very soon. So they've obviously known this has been in development, but they cannot possibly have done a big enough trial sample to guarantee those figures of 90% accuracy. Now I'll go to another document I downloaded yesterday, so I've been just reading up about these things. This one is by someone called Alexander Edwards, who is an associate professor in biomedical technology at the University of Reading. And he talks about COVID-19 tests and how they work. And he tells us in here that there are two types of tests for coronavirus, both with mixed results. So as we know, rich people and medics have been able to get COVID tested already. Many medics haven't, but they have been tested for COVID already. And these are something called the RT-PCR test. And this is a very specific lab test that is very sensitive and very reliable. And is what they've been using so far to diagnose most cases. However, it takes 2 or 3 or 4 days to take the test, get it sent off, get it sent back. And also, once you've recovered from the illness, the virus is eliminated, these tests can no longer tell if you have been infected or not. So obviously there's a couple of really big caveats in that test. Even though it's really accurate, more accurate than any other test, it can't tell if you've been exposed or not, and it takes a long time to process the results. Now obviously when you're looking at testing potentially millions of people, then we haven't got the time to be doing 2-day, 3-day, 4-day waiting times, and there aren't the labs at the moment to handle this. However, it goes on to talk about then the alternative type of test, which is these drop-on tests, and it goes on to about pros and cons. So it says antibody tests must be checked with many different samples, not only to understand its accuracy, but also to know how long after infection the sample becomes positive. Let's just skip through that. So if you want to have a look at this, now I'll put a link in the description. It's on theconversation.com. So lab testing at home kits is what we're talking about here. These are said to be less accurate than the other tests, and he goes on to say that these are generally speaking only 80% effective. 80% sounds pretty good. So this is based on past similar tests with antibodies. They're about 80% effective, as for tried and tested means. But that means 1 in 5 test results are wrong. Now, if you multiply that up to 1 million people being tested, that means 200,000 tests could be wrong, either false positive or false negative. Now, even a few percent inaccuracy can be several thousand people, several 100,000 people over an entire population. So I'll exercise extreme caution in interpretation of these results. Okay, as I was saying, we have to exercise extreme caution in just relying solely on these kits because there are so many unknown variables. So first of all, if someone has been exposed and they have antibodies, does that mean that they can't get infected again? We honestly don't know. We really do not know this because there hasn't been enough time passed yet. We're making some broad assumptions. If someone has been infected and then they get reinfected, there's an assumption being made that they cannot retransmit that disease to other people. Again, I'd massively question that assumption. It's a really dangerous assumption to make. If you're talking about, as they say, a life-threatening illness. I think that we just don't know. And it'd be far better to say, that we don't know with 100% certainty, whether or not people can be reinfected. So what could happen potentially is that you are antibody tested, you're shown to have had it and recovered. Okay, you're sent back into the work environment, supposing you're a nurse, for example, and then you go back into the work environment. You're exposed to COVID again. You get infected again, but you believe because you've had the antibody test and now got immunity that you can't be infected, and so you'll carry on working with patients that are coming in for whatever reason, and then again you could be infecting all those patients because of your infection. And what's more, that a second infection could be just likely to kill you as a first infection. So I don't want to be the harbinger of doom with this. I think it's important to go into our eyes open and not rely solely on a single test that has not been tested yet out in the open world, or even clinically it's barely been tested. So when they are saying there are figures of 97, 98 or 99% accuracy, I would take it with a very, very large pinch of salt, just because it has not been open world tested yet. So in the meantime, I would still urge to maintain social distancing for now. To stick to the protocols we are following at the moment until we understand more about this illness. I think that there are many subjects that are running parallel with this at the moment, and I feel that I'm going to do another video or two later on today about this, because there are so many different things happening at the same time, like what's happening with self-employed people, what the army are doing at the moment, new hospitals being built, etc, etc. So I'm going to leave it at this for now. I think we've covered what we know about this Alpha Bio Labs result here. Alpha Bio Labs antibody tests that they are rolling out across the country. So I would urge you to do your own research. I've just found this on the internet. I've had a look on myself. I've looked at various other antibodies, and I know a bit about how the immune system works myself. So just because you've been tested, and you're tested clear, do not assume that you haven't got it or you can't get it. Likewise, assuming that there is a working accuracy of 97%, that still means that 3 tests in 100 are wrong. Now that's still 3 potentially false positives or false negatives. And if you've got a false positive, you're sent to quarantine and you haven't got it, no, that can have a massive impact on your life. If you are given a false negative, you assume that you are safe to go back into the community and resume your normal life. So I really strongly urge some caution in the use of this until we know more. So please just don't take it on face value. Let's just see what happens and act cautiously even after you've had your test. Okay, thanks very much for watching this. Now, I hope you stuck it to the end. There's been a lot to take on with this. Please do subscribe to the channel, click on subscribe and on the bell button on the bottom here. Leave me any comments or feedback as well. And I'll catch up with you later. Thanks very much. Bye.